So bear with me because I just got Invisalign, so I feel a little lispy. So if anybody needs me to enunciate things better, I can. So we are so excited to have Gordon and Shelley here to talk about best ways to farm. And so I have some questions we put together that were asked by agents, and I have a couple questions myself. So Kelly, do you want us just to start with agent questions first? Does that probably sound best?
Sure. I just, let the two of them introduce themselves and then roll right into it.
Perfect. So Gordon, give me a quick little soundbite, and then Shelley, and then we'll get going.
Awesome. My name's Gordon Hageman. I pretty much do most of my business in the Southeast Valley. My particular farm is in Gilbert. I have been farming about 3,300 homes for about 5 years consistently. And then just recently, starting January 1, I added about 800 homes to that farm. Just to kind of put it in context, my production last year, GCI, which is gross combined income, was a little over 550,000. I did 48 sides last year, so at about $23 million in volume. And then just in my farm alone, which why all of you are here, I did 17 sides in my farm last year. So that's both buyers and sellers.
That's amazing, Gordon. It's awesome. All right, Shelley, you want to give a quick little soundbite, kind of give us a rundown of your farm business, and then we'll get going?
Yep, I'm Shelley Sakala, and I run the Sakala group. And I have a farm of about 1,500 homes, which happens to be the neighborhood in which I live. And we're in far north Phoenix, the Norterra area. I live in Fireside at Norterra. People probably know of that master plan community, and also the one that's in Desert Ridge. And we have just added about 500 to our farm, kind of expanding out of the neighborhood. Last year we did 86 sides, and about half of that, I would say almost, was in our farm, and we sold nearly 40 million.
That's amazing. That's awesome. Guys, so take notes on the tips and tricks that Shelley and Gordon are going to share with you guys, and we'll get going. So I'm sure you guys had different strategies pre-COVID, post-COVID. Well, I guess not really post-COVID, in COVID. Has any of your guys' strategies changed at all from what you used to do to what you're doing now? Shelley, why don't you answer that one first?
Oh, yeah, 100% things have changed. So we've always been really consistent with mailers. And so we have actually picked up the pace on that quite a bit. Like now we send a coming soon always, and then a sold postcard always, to the farm area. Typically though, we do it, there are, a set number of models in our neighborhood. So it's pretty easy to say, this pocket of 100 homes, there were 4 different models you could choose from. So when one of those sells, then we typically, that's what we do, is we'll just send to that area, not the entire neighborhood. So we hit the entire neighborhood as well, but it's really rotating quite nicely as we get listings and have buyers and whatnot. And a lot of my business came from, I enjoy people. I enjoy being out and about and being social. And a lot of my business came from, we have a big community center. And so we would have events, and I would sponsor events, and I would always be at the events, and, shaking hands and kissing babies. And that's all gone for now. Mm-hmm. So we've had to get creative. So I've done different things like sponsor an ice cream truck that comes down to the community center, and I pay for ice cream for the whole neighborhood and things like that.
I love that. And Gordon, I know you said you added another 800 homes just during January. So obviously during COVID. So what's kind of have you seen a shift for you from what you did pre-COVID to what you're doing now?
I think kind of what she said, the only thing that's really changed for me are events. And I personally don't run events, but I team up with other businesses. And there's actually a group of people that run a charity in my farm that I sponsor, and they run the events. That's really the only thing for me that's changed. I think just being more cognizant of the fact that people's comfort level with with what's going on. Certain people obviously are extremely comfortable, like nothing is going on. And then you have opposite end of the spectrum and they don't want you to come within 100 feet of them. So I haven't changed much as far as my approach. I added just an adjacent neighborhood just because it made sense. And then we can get into that. Maybe looking at some of the questions on how did you choose a farm and things like that.
I wanted to add to Gordon's point, what he just said about he doesn't necessarily hold the events, but he has teamed up with some people that do. I mean, that's brilliant, especially if you're just getting into this and you may not have a lot of capital, jump in with some other people that are doing things in your area.
Yeah. I mean,
go ahead, Gordon.
No, I mean, it's not so much just it's very time consuming to put together events. Mm-hmm. So if you can jump in and piggyback off of somebody else's events, it's a huge time saver. And it really depends too on your budget. I know looking at some of the questions, everybody's different budget levels. I happen to sponsor a gold level sponsorship for this charity. So it does cost me money, but there are opportunities, other than that, you don't have to shell out big bucks to participate. But I think letting somebody else do the work and you kind of show up and do
So really quick, because I know we have some questions in the comments. Let's maybe kind of get to the basics. So how did you guys first get started with your farm? And then we can kind of go into like the expenses and how you pick the number and that kind of stuff. So can Shelley answer the first one? Gordon, how did you pick your farm? Is it where you live? Is that like what led you to that?
First, it was where I live, which usually is, I think, most people's inclination to start where they live. I happen to follow and coach with Tom Ferry, and I'll throw out some places where you can kind of look at resources too that I think will be helpful, and looking at some of the questions will help you answer. But if you Google Tom Ferry geographic farming, when I did it, 2 videos popped up. I mean, they are from 2014. So, they're not, let's call it extremely relevant, but with farming, the basics of it aren't cutting edge. So I think looking at those videos, it'll really go into, the things you should look at when you're choosing your farm, because really just to choose a farm because you love it. I think it's very important. I know both of us live in our farm and both do well in it, but you might live in a subdivision where nobody's selling their homes. So it's great to love your home. You love your neighborhood, spend money, try to farm it. But if you're not, in the end of the day, you need to be getting some type of return on it, because that's why we're all here. So,
correct.
So that's how I picked my farm. But Google the Tom Ferry geographic farming. He has, I think, a part 1 and a part 2 video, which are from 2014, but at least it'll give you a high level, maybe a good starting point.
And Gordon hit on an important thing. We have people ask us all the time if they're wanting to farm, what they should be looking for. And we talk about it being your neighborhood kind of as an easier go-to. And Shelley, I know that you live in the same community. Like Gordon mentioned, we want to look at the turnover rates. We want to make sure that homes are actually selling. If you're in a community that no one ever sells in, like you said, you love your homes, but that's not going to be probably the best use of your resources. So Shelley, I know you had already said you live in your neighborhood. So did you farm everybody from the beginning? How did you pick the number that you were farming? What was kind of your intro with that?
Well, so the neighborhood was slowly being built, and we were and are a very social neighborhood. So I just, naturally began to know people, and, as it was getting built out, my business was growing, the neighborhood was growing, and we just continued to, make it bigger and bigger. But, one thing I want to say is, the typical rule of thumb is if somebody has 20% of the market share, maybe you should go to another area. And I know sometimes, realtors will be like, oh, well, I'm just going to bump them out of the way. Okay, well, you can try, but you're probably better off to get into an area where, yes, there is some turnover, people are selling homes, but also there's not one agent that is pretty much owning the area and consistently farming,
And that is something that we look at and we're able to pull as well. We call it kind of agent domination, where we can see, we can't obviously see who's mailing in there. If you live in the community, I'm speaking obviously to everybody else listening,
right,
you will know, but we can pull and see who actually is having transactions. And that's always always something we have people to consider. So you're just aware of who your competition is. And, we need to do our due diligence with this. So,
Sure.
okay, I'm going to start going through some of the couple questions because I know people are talking about expenses, but I think we need to kind of get to more of the basics first. So, for you guys, do you guys have someone that sends it out for you monthly? Or are you guys on like just every month, 1,500 goes out for Shelley, so it's an X amount? Is it something that's constantly changing? Gordon, what's your cost in sending out as well?
Who's first?
We'll have you go first this time, Gordon.
Okay. So I mail specifically 2 times a month to my farms now too. I do a postcard and then a newsletter. I happen to, and every month it's really, I come up with the content. And to be honest with you, a lot of times the internet's a lovely place to be. So a lot of times I'll steal stuff I see on the internet, or, like I said, I happen to coach with Tom Fair organizations. So, there are people within that, hey, this piece worked really well for me. So basically rip off and duplicate. So, I mean, if I know a lot of the questions here on, what do you do? I wouldn't necessarily always try to reinvent the wheel. Maybe not picking somebody like in your marketplace, but finding somebody that maybe if you're on let's say you're a West Side agent, maybe find somebody that does something on the East Side and say, hey, hey, this piece worked really well. Can I use it? And basically put your face and your information on it and send it out, or, there's different ways to deliver. But yeah, so I do a postcard, and depending, sometimes it's just listed, just sold. I mean, I don't know if it's easy to see. So, I mean, we'll do just listed type of stuff, just sold type of stuff. Obviously right now listings are at a premium. So, and I don't fabricate, but I have a buyer right now. If you're looking, I guess, doing service to your buyers, but also, especially if your buyers can say, hey, I want to live in this neighborhood. If it's different, if I want to live in Gilbert, I really am not going to send out that postcard to, hundreds of thousands of homes. But that's a great piece too. And then after a while, I mean, the biggest piece of a farm, it's getting it going, having the resources and the time to really do it at a 6-month minimum. Yeah, you might get lucky and get something right off the bat, but the chances of that are pretty slim. But then building up a track record in your farm. So you dominate, which in the end really helps keep other people from farming. Let's call it smart people from farming in your farm. People that get with Madison say, hey, I want to start a farm in Seville, and Madison pulls up, the data and says, hey, you're going to be fighting an uphill battle here. But then, mailing after a while, and I'm not doing this to like toot my horn, but then, call it like proof of success piece. Yeah. I've just been modifying this piece, at one point it was 20, 25, 50, now it's up to, unfortunately, I don't the number, but anyways, let's say 70 homes. So really, and I don't send out a lot of those. I'm not really one to say, hey, look at me, but just to really give people like, hey, when you're going to choose the local expert, like here's the guy here's the proof. So
you're doing 2 a month to your farm every month.
2 a month.
Okay, cool. And Shelley, how often are you hitting your farm a month?
We probably hit our farm, I would say once or twice a month as well. But I advertise, in a local newspaper. And so that goes out to everybody monthly. I do a lot of layering. So there's all kinds of things that we do around the community, from, sponsoring things at the school, just, really as much as we can. But I just wanted to touch on, how I got started, was just chatting with people and then kind of deciding, this is really what I want to do, and I need to figure out how to farm. And I will say, a lot of times listening to somebody else and you kind of get that feeling of, oh my gosh, that person is speaking to me. That happened with me with Kenny Klaus. People probably know who he is. He was is a guru when it comes to farming. And I sat and listened to one of his classes once, and I just was taking all these notes and like, oh my gosh, I can do that. I can do that. I can do that. This is great. This is great advice. This is, and he was doing a newsletter. And what I loved about his newsletter is he always, and this is what I try to do with, some of the postcards you send to Just Listed or whatever is one thing, but when I send something out, I try to think about, would I just glance at this or not glance at it at all before it ends up in the trash can? What can I provide? So I started with this newsletter that went out to the entire neighborhood. And this was like, I don't know, almost 9 years ago. And my background is in media. I used to be a reporter and a meteorologist at ABC 15. So I do have inherently a little bit of that marketing, in me. And that's what I, majored in college as well. So I kind of have that side and the writing and all of that. So I would put together the newsletter. But once you create that template, then it's easy just to drop and drag and change things out every month, with your new listings or your just solds or whatever. But I was adding some items of value like coupons and different things from local businesses or businesses even within the neighborhood. They offer 25% off of something or, $50 off of this or that or whatever. So people would hold on to the newsletter. They weren't throwing them out because they were using the coupons. So that was a way to get people to hold on to them, And I had some kids door to door, teenage kids that I was paying hourly, and they were happy to have the job, and they went door to door and dropped off all the newsletters. And we did it for about, I would say 8 months until all of a sudden my phone was ringing off the hook, because that's the reason we titled this, Don't Be a One-Hit Wonder. It's all about the consistency. And I know in my neighborhood, how many people, you've got a buddy or a cousin or a relative or somebody from college or whatever that does a little bit of real estate here and there. They're going to give you a deal maybe, and that's who you end up hiring. You're going to have a lot of one-offs for sure. And then people think, because they don't do their research, and they're like, oh, let's start farming this area. Oh, hey. And then you'll get 1 or 2 communications from them. Usually not 2, usually just 1. And that's it. So there's no continuation of, and that's the key, is people start to get comfortable with you. I joke and say my big word, you become ubiquitous, you're everywhere, your name, your brand, all of that. You just have to continue staying in front of people, and it may not feel like you're getting anywhere, but it takes some time.
So you still do the newsletter every month to everyone?
I do not do the newsletter any longer, no,
Okay.
Because we have other ways that we're marketing, and we do have most people, when we have an event, we capture their information if possible, and we have a lot in the neighborhood now online. And like I said, I'm in that newspaper, which a lot of older folks look at. That's the older demographic, not the younger demographic. They're typically not looking at newspapers, but yeah, we're always with proof of production, just like, Gordon is. And we do, we're doing another thing where we're going to do free ice cream. And so we'll send out to the whole neighborhood. And I have a lender partner that actually lives in the neighborhood as well. So he will split costs with me. So that's another really great idea, you guys. Find somebody who's willing to jump in with you, and that helps offset your costs.
And it's even better that he lives in the neighborhood, so he has a vested interest in this as well.
Absolutely.
So regardless, though, you're hitting everybody at least once a month.
Yes.
With some type of mailer or something. And then you do the layered, like I said, whether it's just sold, your all that stuff. So how you said it took you 8 months till you kind of started getting your phones called. Gordon, how long did you farm before you actually started to see a return?
It's a great question, because I started farming about 6 years ago. So I don't, I would just say though, it's tried and true, regardless who you talk to about farming. It's something you need to find the right farm. Statistically, you need to find the right farm. I mean, really, you're not going to find if you have the right farm until, let's call it 6 to 8 months, even 12 months, just to really see if your farming is working. But yeah, it's something you need to commit to. And then, and then also be cognizant of the fact after a certain, let's call it 6 to 8 to 12 months, if you're not getting a return, it might be time to look at either, switching farms. Maybe your message isn't right, but not just keep going, because usually there's a reason. If you keep going on a farm and you're not getting production, it's either, your message isn't conveying well to the farm. There's someone else dominating the farm, and you're just basically you're sitting there trying to fight the battle. But I guess the tip, long and short of it, is you need to at least commit to, hey, I'm going to do this for 6 months. So whether it be, call it check equity, meaning you have the money to mail, or sweat equity, meaning you're taking flyers and shoving them indoors and door knocking. But so give it 6 months.
Well,
And
you
I
hit
will
on
say, you're gonna irritate some people too, right, Gordon?
I mean, I actually just had
There's always someone, so try not to get discouraged.
I just had this discussion with somebody, the gal at the front desk at my gym this morning. We were talking about something, but the best successes I've had in my farm have come from pissed off people either going on next door and telling me what an a-hole I am for shoving something in their door.
Yep.
And then another neighbor calls and says, hey, I like the fact that you're actually working. And then
Hustling. Yeah.
I had $1 million house that I sold this year where I shoved something in the guy's door. He called me and told me to quit putting stuff in his door, and he was really not nice about it. And then about 6 months later, like I said, the community I have as a country club, and I happened to be sitting at one end of the table. He came in after golfing, sat at the other end of the table, and on the front, I have a skin on the front of my laptop. And he's like, are you Gordon? And it's like, yeah, hey, I'm Chris. I'm the guy that called you 6 months ago. Sorry, and basically kind of told me he's having a bad day. But anyways, yeah, I mean, just gotta have a thick skin. You're gonna make people mad, but your phone is ringing, and it's your opportunity to connect and meet somebody. That's the way I always look at it. Hey, you know what? My phone rang. I have your phone number now. I know where you live, because you're going to tell me where you live, to not put anything in your door again. You have a shot to turn around. Either maybe you go to the dollar store, buy a dollar card, send them a Starbucks gift card, say, I'm so sorry. And you might come to find out they just had a really bad day, and you were you just happened to be who they're taking it out on. And all of a sudden, hey, we were thinking about selling our house. And so,
My point is, don't get discouraged though, because it's inevitable. You're going to piss somebody off. It's just, you broke my screen because you put that newsletter in between the screen and the door. Okay.
Yep.
And Gordon, I think you hit on something really good earlier too, where you talked about, like, you need to not only have the, consistency with monetarily, like you need to be able to pay to do this stuff, but you need to be able to have the willpower to continue to follow up with people and see the long-term results of that, which is awesome. A couple people have asked, are you guys using EDM to send out, or how are you guys mailing out? So Shelley, I'll go to you first.
Yeah, sometimes I do use that, but I can't really get my entire neighborhood without it bleeding out into other areas. And then my message has to change, because I can't just have it hyper focused to, my fireside at Norterra, so no. And occasionally I send things out to the entire zip code, because I do work, our 85085 zip code. So we try to quarterly do a mailing to the entire zip code. So in that case, yes, I do use EDM, and it's the easiest way to go.
And Gordon, are you sending out to Seville via EDM, or do you do individual addresses?
So I do all of my flyers and everything. If I'm trying to hit like my twice a month is all EDDM, which, if you don't know what EDDM is, you get the stuff in your mail with that type of, that's EDDM. Basically, you send to postal routes. So every postal route, depending, is going to be anywhere from 500 to 700 homes. But yeah, EDDM. And then if I have targeted, let's call it targeted people, or people that maybe raise their hands at some point, and I'm having my assistant bring it. But anyways, it's not real hard. Self hand addressed envelopes that look like party invitations in colorful envelopes. So a little bit of trickery to get people to open, but
yeah,
I love that. And Shelley hit on something really important, because it's good for you that Seville's pretty contained in a mail route, but I'll have people who are looking that one subdivision split up into multiple mail routes, or it's encompassing an area you don't want to farm. So that's why, EDM can work in the sense that it's less expensive for the postal part of it, but has to make sense for your farm. So that's something that we always have people ask us as well. Okay, let me see. I'm going over to the questions that are in the chat really quick.
Can I hit on a question? It looks like, and then looking at the questions, the pre-done questions, and then it looks like on these, it looks like there's quite a few people on here that maybe are, you know, I guess very budget conscious, which is, there's
Correct.
nothing wrong, there's nothing wrong with that.
Mhm.
There's a site called Canva, canva.com. You can get a lot done with their free version. So as far as if you know, a lot of people are like, I need to send out something pretty, which to be honest, when I first started, I did it on a Word document, and I printed it on colored paper. So I didn't do anything pretty. But if you're one of those people that says, I need something pretty, Canva, it's very easy to use with their free tool. You don't need to pay. If you really need colorful, you know, if you want something colorful and a little bit more aesthetically pleasing than a Word document.
Mhm.
But yeah, I know a lot of people, it's like cost. As far as EDDM, right now it's not without printing, it's 17.5 cents a door. And then if you have questions on printing and you want to do things at larger scale, Madison would be a great resource for you
Yeah.
if you don't already have it.
And I know you guys also, I know one of the power partners with my home group is also Prime Source Printing. So they also have great pricing and stuff as well. Shelley, for you guys, I mean, obviously I know your budget also includes doing stuff within the community. So do you guys have a set budget every single month for your farm?
I don't. I probably should have said yes to that, but I don't.
Hey, but thank you for being honest. Thank you for being honest in that.
Yeah, no, I don't have a set budget. I pretty much just go with, you know, if we've got 3 or 4 new listings in that neighborhood, then my budget may be larger one month because I have content, you know, and that's what it's all about. You know, having content and having a good message. And there are some things I will say that I do have in budget for the year because I know I do them yearly. And going back to always thinking about what you're sending and creating, you know, items of value. Every year I send out a bulk trash magnet with, you know, my head on it, this logo, and it's got the bulk trash schedule for the whole neighborhood for the whole year. And I swear 9 out of 10 homes I go into have that on the side of their refrigerator. They're not going to throw it away because it's, you know, they'll refer to it to find out when bulk trash is because that's easier than going to a website. So I know some people do things like that with football schedules or, you know, your local high school schedule. You have to just get a feel for what your neighborhood is into, you know, and know the vibe of your neighborhood and your farm and play off of that.
Gordon, for you, do you have a set monthly budget that includes things within the community? I know you said you do like your charity stuff, or do you do anything like Shelley does that is people can keep?
No, I don't really do any kind of keepsakes or any like calendars and things like that. So for me, it's just twice a month, monthly farming. My sponsorship, I think I spend $2,000 a year with the charity to be on their sponsorship, which gives, they usually do 4 events in our community, a golf tournament, a run, a cornhole tournament, and I forget there's one more, but then they have signage and then I'm the sponsor with that. So.
And I was going to ask you guys, but sorry, go ahead,
I was
Shelley.
going to say it's nice getting with the charity because it's a great thing to do, and especially if you believe in the charity. Obviously, I wouldn't back one that I didn't, but it's also a tax write-off, you know. So there's a lot of benefits from it.
And especially I feel like nowadays people want to believe into something. I mean, so many of these businesses that are not even real estate related, people buy into it because they support a cause that, you know, the consumer likes. So I just think it just brings you even more well-rounded in your community that you can say we're supporting something local that actually, you know, helps local kids in need or whatever maybe. So I encourage that fully. And like Shelley said, pick something that rings true to you that, you know, and it's even better if it works in your community. So we had some questions in the chat that said, you know, what systems do you put in place to ensure consistency for each marketing? So Gordon, since you're going every, you know, twice a month, do you have it where it's just automated that like on the 1st one thing goes out and the 15th one thing goes out, like, or does your assistant do that? How do you have yours set up?
So we have a marketing calendar. And my assistant and I use something called Trello. I have everything on a Google. We have it on a Google Calendar, but as far as our to-do list, I just because I have somebody else, I use something called Trello, and then it's a lot of times too, it's kind of where I keep my ideas a lot of times, or if she has an idea, we can kind of collaborate that way. She's usually the one that takes our vision and gets it designed and then, takes care of it from there. But yeah, I think, So anyways, we do twice a month, and yes, we have it on a scheduled calendar as far as our mailings.
But then you're still physically the one that's having to make sure it goes out. Like, it's not just like set it and someone does it for you.
No, we have it printed, bring it in. My assistant bundles it, which if you don't have an assistant, it's not EDDM. Once you've done it once or twice, it's very, very, very easy. So I just have the luxury of having an assistant to do it. But if you don't have that, it's not hard to do.
And speaking on that, for a fact, I know that like Prime Source, if you do go through EDDM, they actually will do it for you. You pay a small fee, but they will send it and take it to that specific, because if anybody's following doesn't know this, it has to go to that post office and that mail route, and they will do it for you. So that's nice if you, like Gordon said, don't have an assistant, but want to be able to utilize that service, there is options too.
That's what we do. We go through Lawyer's Title, our title rep, and then Prime Source, and then Prime Source just directly, which is such a nice time saver.
Mm-hmm. And Shelley, do you do something similar to Gordon? Are you guys on a set calendar? Like you said, as just you have listings come up, things are going out. How do you guys manage it all?
We're on a set calendar. We have, certain things that we do on certain days. Like I do a Transformation Tuesday type thing where people in our neighborhood are really into remodeling and upgrading and updating and all that kind of stuff, because the neighborhood's 10 years plus older in most areas. So we do a lot of that for content. And then we have a schedule, and I'm lucky enough now to have worked to a point where I have a marketing director. So she keeps a calendar, and we meet constantly about content and when we're sending things and so we know, which neighborhoods we've hit and when, and it's timed. But sometimes, you'll have random listings and you might have a few that are clumped in one area. And so there's more people in a certain area that get, mailers.
But I think you guys both focus on the same thing, that like it's not just flying by the seat of your pants. You guys have a plan every single month, and you've learned that you have to, because otherwise, all of a sudden it's, oh my gosh, we're into February and you haven't gotten a piece out, or you haven't even started thinking the process. I think having that, and that's something that I know, like with clients, we always sit down and we figure out the plan for the year if they don't have, marketing director and assistant and stuff. So I don't want everybody to feel like you have to have those roles. I mean, it's wonderful they do, but you can do this and maintain it on your own, as long as you're having some sense of a calendar, whether you're using, Google Docs or just something to keep yourself organized.
And if there's not a community Facebook page, which, in most everybody has one, but there may not be one. So start something like that and be the source for everything in your neighborhood. But here's the other thing too, Madison, everyone, you have to be careful and, gauge the type of feedback that you get, gauge the likes that you get on certain posts, and then you're going to be able to see what your neighborhood enjoys and what they like to see from you. If I post something like a before and after of 2 homes, like a client's home or even my own home or whatever, oh my gosh, off the charts as far as people just loving it. And then if we just say, just listed, it's kind of like, wah, wah. People go, okay. So kind of gauge that and be able to engage on a level that is resonating with your farm.
So Shelley, you said that, you're posting these things. Is this stuff that you're posting on your own personal social media, or are you posting it to your neighborhood group? Like where?
We post to the neighborhood group. Then I also have, I have a personal page, and then I also have a business page for the Sakala group. So we do a ton of posting on the Sakala group. I'm a little more careful, and I had gauged my, friend group, my personal page. And like I said, it falls flat if I just say new listing, unless there's something really interesting about the new listing, and you have to show that. People, you just have to, you don't want to kill them. It's like, okay, we get it. You're a realtor, you have to be careful. And I like to do a lot of subliminal marketing, which is like, if I'm out showing a house somewhere and I see something really funky or crazy or, whatever, I might take a picture of that and talk about, I'm showing this house today and blah, blah. So guess what I'm telling you? That I'm working and I'm out and I'm busy, but I didn't have to cram it down your throat with just listed, or these people are happy, just sold. The pictures of my clients with the sold sign. Some people love that. My people don't really seem to care. Plus my personality is a little more snarky and, sarcastic. So I like to go in that direction. And it seems like, my sphere of influence is on board with that. So you have to find your own voice, and you have to be, but gauge, when you put things out there, really take a look at it and see what people like from you as far as content goes.
I think if I had to put, like, let's call it exactly what you're describing is that, I'm a realtor, shoving that in people's face all the time. There are certain agents out there that have a lot of success with it. Usually the agents that do that are the ones that are throwing a ton of money behind it. Let's call it your Russell Shaws or your 72 solds, who they put a ton of money behind them, and they're in, that's their thing. But if any of you follow Gary Vaynerchuk or Gary V, his thing, and I guess to put it in perspective that way in your thought process, it's jab, jab, right hook. So jab, let's say, is sending out something about a charity. Another jab would be sending out your calendar. Right hook is just listed, just sold. And so it's kind of think about, and even sometimes with your social media, it's like, call it like give, I'm a realtor, give, I'm a realtor. So it's not realtor, because then you're just one of the, I don't even know, 60,000 people. It's like, I sell houses, and everyone's like, great, I know that. And
Good for you.
I think so.
So Gordon, for your social media, do you do one within Seville, or is it just your own personal stuff that then people in Seville can see?
Great question. I did do that. My Facebook was stolen by a really good hacker that I could basically so my business page is, I have access. Anyways, I did 2 months ago when I did, I had a Seville, I had a specific Seville, which is my real estate page, which I just posted just for people that wanted real estate info. And then I had one that was a neighborhood, which once again was, neighborhood. And then I would take my real estate stuff and post from my Seville real estate Facebook page to that community page. So yes, I need to build it back out again and rename it, but it was stolen by a hacker. So, but going to that too, most neighborhoods now have nextdoor.com. They do have a paid real estate, portion of it, which if you want it, it's not really expensive, but just contributing on that site. And in my subdivision, there seems to be a lot of eyeballs on it. I see a lot of chat, lost dogs, this person's speeding. I mean, there seems to be a lot of people on it. So that might be the case with your neighborhood or not. But not even for the paid aspect, just contribute on there with graphics or your take on, hey, your take on what's going on in real estate. And if you need really good graphics, if you follow, and I'm not trying to plug people, if you follow Madison on Instagram, she uses something called Keeping Current Matters, which has just phenomenal, easy to read graphics that are super, like, they're simple. Follow her. And then if you're good with technology, take a picture of it, zoom in on it, save it and post it if you need content, unless she has an avenue for you to get that as well.
They also have, you guys can follow them freely. They also have subscriptions where you can have stuff branded too and that kind of stuff too. But I think you guys are both hitting on, like, the simple things. We need to, I don't want to say dumb things down. We don't need to dumb down, but we want things to be the easiest to catch the consumer's eye, that's truly giving them some value tips. And those are some awesome resources if you need them. I have someone asking a question, and this might not be, I mean, I can obviously give my input as well, but someone asked, we're starting out with a new farm area today. What's the minimum size of the farm and minimum number of months we should budget for? I know obviously you have your perspective based on Tom Ferry, and Shelley, you probably have a different perspective as well.
I'm coached by Tom Ferry as well.
Oh, there you go. You guys probably both have the
So
same
yeah,
perspective.
we're Tom Ferry fans here. You know, I feel like it all comes down to your budget. And I think starting small is better.
Correct.
It's more affordable. It's more intimate. I think that you'll have a better return on your investment. So I would say the smaller the better. I mean, even if you're in a community like mine, for example, Fireside in Norterra, the actual little subdivision that we lived in, you know, was called the Highlands, and there were 101 houses in that area. You could start right there with 101 houses and then bleed out, you know, and as you make more money and you can afford more, then you do more.
I agree with that. I think, you know, like I said, I mentioned, watch the Tom Ferry video. And like, I'm not plugging Tom Ferry. I just think his video, it's very simple, but looking at a farm that at least has, you know, let's call it a benchmark, a 6% minimum turnover every year. And I'm just going to speak to my farm specifically. In the main part of it, there's 4 EDDM routes, which, so you could go to EDDM, sign up for it, kind of see what the postal routes are in where you want to farm, then go to the MLS and use the mapping feature and literally just kind of map, you know, give or take where those EDDM routes are, and then look at the, you know, the market activity in each one of those subsections. And then you're like, wow, you know, maybe a certain area of your farm might be a higher dollar volume, but it doesn't turn over as much. But then, like, specifically, I know when I first started, and it sticks out, there was a certain section that was a lower dollar, but was really like had huge turnover. So if you were extremely budget conscious and you wanted to go the EDDM route or even a door knocking route, and you're like, where do I start? You know, if you have a larger geographic area that you think you might want to conquer at some point, breaking it down into subsections and then looking at those as like, hey, you know, I'll get to this one eventually once I get some traction over here. Because once you have traction here, then you can use that to maybe start breaking into other areas. So, you know, there's different ways to, you know, to break it down. So long story.
When I tell people pretty much the same thing. I'm like, you know, I'll use the example Power Ranch and Gilbert, you know, it's massive. And so I'll have clients that want to farm these very large communities. And I'm like, okay, how can we start make this small? It's so much easier, like Shelley said, to bleed it out. I'd rather you start with a couple hundred if that's doable for you financially as well as physically. Because if you don't have the financial capability to do it and you're door knocking it, like, are you going to be able to take on 1,200 homes in summer in Arizona? Or is, you know, 400 homes more manageable? And you have to also think of the follow-up. And I always feel, well, let's start smaller and we can grow it out. And Kurt, I think the biggest thing is, you know, we need to look at this for six months to a year. So having the budget and the time to be able to commit to that, because like Shelley said, how many times do we see things get mailed out that only are mailed out once and then there's never a follow-up? It's because there was no plan, probably no budget put forward or set aside for it. We want this to be consistent. We want this to work, because if you look back after a few months and you're not consistently doing it, then even what you did do is a waste of your time and your effort. So I always say the same thing, start small, let's budget for at least 6 months. And it can be sweat equity first. If you're like, hey, I want to put my kids to work and myself, and we'll go out and we'll door knock and put them in people's doors, you can easily do that.
Agreed.
Easily. So for you guys, I mean, I know you guys are humongous into your farms. Is that your guys' main source of business? Or would you say that that's like a quarter of your business? Where do you guys measure up for your farm? I'll have Shelley go first.
I think it's about half of my business, for sure. And then building that farm and having those clients. And again, you know, this sounds okay, I've heard it a million times, but knowing your database, living in your database, making sure everybody's in your database, making sure you've set up follow-ups for those people, and so you help somebody. I've helped some people because I've been doing this for 17 years now, 4 or 5 times with buying or selling. And it started from one plate, you know what I mean? So you stay in front of them, and that just helps blossom your entire business.
I don't know. And last year, my farm was 35% of my sales as far as units.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Well, the thing that's so nice is, I mean, you guys obviously track everything. And if anybody's not, that's your biggest thing. And Tom teaches that. So is anybody that you're going to ever coach or learn from, tracking everything, knowing where your dollars are spent, knowing what the return is. Because now I'm sure Gordon next year can say, okay, 35% of my business came from my farm, but how many of those people in his farm now become part of his database or referral off of that have nothing to do with his farm? And so I think it's the larger picture that we need to look at. And this is just one of their pillars of business on top of their database and other things they may do. A lot of these questions I feel are we've kind of gone over, because a lot of things I think layer into one another. Is there anything that you guys wish you've done differently that you've done in the past that you wish to change and not do? I'll have Gordon take on this one first.
Not necessarily. I mean, I think with me, it's always, I guess it's always just, it's a moving, living, breathing thing to add, subtract. If something's working, multiply. Just really, just keeping an eye on it. And like right now, like our newsletter we've done on Canva for 2 years. And then right now I'm in the process of having it professionally designed, just because I've noticed more people are starting to try to farm in my area. So, sometimes that's the motivator to say, hey, you know what, I've been doing this for this long, it's been working, but there's a target, let's just call it, there's a target on my back. Somebody they want my money in my business. So it's like, well, I can keep being stagnant, or we can innovate. So with our newsletter, I mean, that's what I've been rolling with for, in statistics, and I keep it 100% real estate related, just because there's a community magazine that goes out with family of the month and recipes and stuff like that. So I keep this, this is the real estate news that comes every month, but just making it, I'm getting it redesigned so it looks more, and I'm just happen to have these like more like magazines. It's gonna, this is a different magazine, but so it's gonna look a little bit more professional. So yeah, it's just just pay attention, because if you're doing one thing and your phone's not ringing, or you're not getting any type of action after a certain period of time, like, is it your message? Is it how you're delivering the message? Is it actually the farm? Is it the market? Because right now there's not a lot selling. So it's, it might not necessarily be, it might just be the fact that, people aren't moving right now, but then just staying strong to doing what's working.
Shelley, is there anything?
There are 0 homes available in my neighborhood right now. 0.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
So we're all in that same boat,
So then Gordon shared a picture earlier, which I love, that it was a picture of a family, with about them. Do you ever send things out to your neighborhood, like inquiring if people are looking to sell?
Yep, we do.
Okay.
But I think, just what Gordon did, I think that is key, because I know that I get the texts, I get the letters, I get the, from so many different agents and saying, I've got buyers, we got, and you're just, sure you do. So I think if you can just really personalize it like he did, that's fantastic, because it's proof. These people really exist. I really do have buyers. I have a lot of them, as a matter of fact. This is just, these are just 2 of them. So we do that exact same thing, and definitely handwriting the envelopes and, that sort of thing, so that people actually open them. And I'll say too, with a lot of the mailers and the postcards and whatever, and I'm saying, try not to send something that people are going to just toss. But yeah, 9 times out of 10, they are going to toss it. But if it's eye-catching and they've looked at it, just sort of like you can gauge views for a video or something on Facebook. It's hard to gauge how many people, but you typically look at a postcard before you decide to throw it away. So you see, the person's name and photo and a house and this and that, and you're going to store it back here. So then, you may toss it, but then, oh, look, this is Shelley Sakala sending me another one. A little annoying, throw it away. Another one. But then you go, well, if she's, marketing to me in that way, I bet you she'd be great marketing my property.
Mhm.
I think someone on here was asking about size of pieces, and I know we're talking about mailing. I think a good place to start is like look in your mail and be the consumer. What do you actually look at? What do you always just take and throw away? So if you need a kind of a starting point, like, hey, every time I get this piece from this pool company, you know what? I always stop and I look at it. I think, most, from looking at it from a different standpoint, when you go to get your mail for the next month, 2 months, like, wow, size postcards, this is I do full size postcards just because, like, again, go get your mail and think about, if you have a small postcard, it's smaller than it doesn't stick out. And a lot of it's also with the consistency piece. It's not that they're fully reading your stuff every month. It's even if it's looking at it for 5 seconds, seeing your face and your logo, throwing it away. Next month, they see your face and their logo, they throw it away. And then it just so happens 8 months from now, they go to get the mail, and I'm just going to use this, they're getting a divorce. So now it's like, all of a sudden, that, you know what? Real estate, your name, I've seen this before. I have a need for it now. So now I'll stop and read it. Because I get a lot of those calls too. It's like, hey, I've been getting your newsletter in my mail for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously with mail, you have no way to track. It's just a lot of it's, I have been getting this for 3 years. I go to people's houses, and usually older people, and they have like, they have, I keep all my newsletters. They have all my newsletters. Like,
Yeah.
packed up. Like, I get all your stuff. And I'm like, well, I'm glad you keep it as well. But I think that's the biggest, I think one of the biggest things right now, if you truly have buyers, it's because a lot of people, it's like, great, there's no homes for sale. I think most people know that right now. I mean, instead of consumers like, hey, there's no listings. I think most people like see the fact that there's no listings. Sellers see that stuff's selling. I don't think you need to tell them that anymore. Maybe we needed to tell them that 6 months ago, 8 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
And then right now it's for most people, and I'm sure if you're working with a lot of buyers or even sellers, it's not so much, it's easy to sell my house, but then what? So, really reiterating, and that's what we did on the backside of this, was kind of the why a private sale is good. And a lot of it too, with, right now, maybe pressing if your buyer has some flexibility, like, hey, I have a buyer that wants to buy in your neighborhood. They would be willing to buy your house and let you live in it for 60 days for free while I help you find your next house. So, you're alleviating that, which right now is probably a huge stress level for a lot of buyers and sellers. So it's like, hey, I have a buyer that wants to buy in your neighborhood. If you're doing EDDM, you can't target it to house specific. But like this one says, does your home fit their needs? Or are you not sure if your home fits their needs? Call me. So at least it's, hopefully my phone rings, and if it fits their needs, we'll go from there. If not, at least, hey, well, why did you call me? Oh, we've had thoughts of something great. So I'm not going to be able to fill these people's needs, but I've gotten a listing. But it's a lot. This is, and I said, and I think a lot of it is, I'm sorry to go long, but how you talk about it too, where I said these, hey, Jen, send me a picture. And she reluctantly text messaged me a picture of her and James. And then it's like, so, you're getting this in the mail, and it's not, I have a buyer, because I think we've gotten, I have a buyer. It's like, well, great. We all have a lot of buyers, but it's like, no, I have real people. And I specifically too, when I do these, and I've done them before, like I make them like, you need to be pre-qualified, because I also don't want to send this out. Somebody calls me, and then Jen and James all of a sudden, oh, we can't qualify to buy a house. And then you look like a schmuck. So, but I think it's a big opportunity. If you have a specific farm and you happen to have real buyers in the farm and have buyers that will participate, in that type of marketing. And it, like I said, I get those type, I have a buyer too, but I never get with like, look, there's real people that are.
Nope, never.
So it's like, I have buyers like, oh, okay.
And I know we're getting close to wrapping up, Kelly. So do you guys have any last few like takeaways you want to just say, like best tips, tricks, like this last thing to kind of leave everybody with?
Go for it.
Well, I mean, I just think that you have to, there's a lot of public relations involved, especially when you're farming in an area in which you live. So you have to always be representing yourself, in the best way possible, constantly, Can't get into the drama. You can't get into the, so-and-so's getting divorced. Sometimes I know about divorces before anybody else does because they've had me come over and, so you have to just be very discreet, So, but I just, my number one thing is consistency, for sure. You just have to come up with a plan and don't get discouraged if you don't see a return right away, because it does take some time.
I love that part. That's so true. Like at anything in real estate, you can't get discouraged right away because this is a long-term game.
Yep.
So parting last word. I mean, I'm just going to speak to I guess if you don't have, let's call it the money to go all out and do a lot of this stuff, keep it simple. Don't overthink it. Because there's analysis, was it paralysis by analysis, so it's like, I'm going to do this piece has to be perfect. And then you by the time you design a newsletter and it's, oh, I've got all the stats. Well, now it's next month and that it's not relevant. So it's like, hey, you know what? I'm going to farm. I'm going to put something together quickly. And I mean, the purpose too, it's not necessarily the piece you're putting out. It's the connection you're going to make with the people. And I know COVID's a big thing right now. I am fully aware of different people's perspective on it. I would still find a neighborhood that, do the math on it. If you need help, I'm sure Madison and has, can help you, find the farm once you kind of have some interest in it, narrow it down, pick something that's knockable. And, like I said, door knocking. And if you need door knocking script, go to mikeferry.com, resources tab, use the Mike Ferry, the door knocking script. It's very simple. If you don't like scripts, sorry, my language, tough shit. Like learn the script, internalize it, and use it. You'll find that it works, because what it basically is, this conversation starter. But anyways, I would just get on Word or Canva, make a simple flyer, get a KCM post that you steal from Madison's Instagram page, put it on your flyer, print it out of my home group office in color. I think we're allowed free color copies. I don't know, or black and white. Fold it, put them in a bag, go knock on doors, either have your mask on or put your mask in your hands so you don't look like you're totally not sensitive to COVID, or depending on your feelings. And then some people you'll find don't care about COVID, and some people do, and just gauge it accordingly, and just go get it.
Well, thank you guys so much. I think the biggest thing is, they've hit on it multiple times, is just the consistency of it. Doing it, having the data, understanding what you're going into, having some of a plan. So if you need any help, myself or any of the other lawyer title reps would love to help you identify your farm area, have the best plan of attack, have a game plan, plan a budget, have a calendar for it. It definitely works, but you need to be consistent and you need to be relevant in it. And I think that's the biggest thing that Shelley and Gordon have hit on time and time and time again. So thank you guys so much for sharing like all of your wealth of knowledge. And clearly you guys are both very successful in general, but also very successful in your farms.
And I'll give you my cell phone if, obviously my time too. I mean, so if you need help, it's 602-552-6421. So 602-552-6421. If you want a text message, and then, there you go. Kelly put it on there for you. Yeah, if you have questions about farming, want to get started, I mean, I can help you kind of get started. Let's call it at a low level, and at least get you going, and we'll go from there.
Same here,
Awesome.
Kelly. You
Thank you,
can share
Gordon.
my info.
Yep.
Thank you, guys.
Oh, you're gonna read it to me real quick, Shelley?
602-421-2324.
It's quicker than me looking it up. Perfect.
If you can't Google it and find it, I have not done my job.
Forget farming. That's awesome. You guys, thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye, guys.